Okay, when we talk about the decrees of God, was this an active or passive? Did God actively move the Jews to envy? So you would say, at least from God's ordaining their actions, God's passive. God is not the author of that. So he's not the author of the envy that's in these scribes and Pharisees. The scribes and Pharisees tempted the mob, the people, to cry out for Barabbas. That wasn't God. But in the true sense, okay, so it is helpful to have passive decrees in our terminology because we don't want God to be the author of evil. So we distinguish between God's active and passive decrees. But the best theologians make a caveat when they talk about God's passive decrees. The passive side of God's decrees are active. Let me explain that. I know that sounds confusing. So all passive decrees are active passive. If I got hit by the baseball and it was unintentional, then it's passive passive. I didn't have anything to do with it. But if I saw the baseball coming to me and I wanted to be hit by it, I stayed in the batter's box. I didn't flinch. Then I was active and passively allowing it to happen. All of God's decree is God's active. And even though I'm dividing the decrees up from a primary, secondary side, I'm doing that only for our cognitive awareness and thinking of it. You got to think of this as a single thing. The way Romans talks about how God judges sinners, he gives them over. He does not push them into sin. He gives them to sin. See, God, for good to happen, for love to happen, God has to have an active effort placed upon you. Grace has to be given to you. God has to lift you up. He has to forcefully empower you to believe, and he has to forcefully assist you with love. And so God's can be credited for all good in you, but he's not credited for the evil in you. For you to be lifted up in holiness and righteousness and good works, God's active energy has to do it. For you to turn into evil or to go further into sin, total depravity is you're thoroughly depraved, but you're not yet totally depraved. That happens when you get to hell, when all restraining graces are removed. And for you to become more and more evil, God doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to tempt you. He doesn't have to push you into it. God just has to remove his restraints. And so God upholds all things by the power of his hand, figuratively speaking. And when man sins, the punishment of sin is giving over, being separated from God further. And so when man sins, God gives them over to reprobate mind, and when they go into further, he gives them over to homosexuality and gives them over to bestiality, and there's no end to where it goes. There's no end. It's infinitely low where humanity will go, full of hate, total hate, with no restraining grace upon them. God is active in the degree he lets you go. Think of my hand. I'm not dropping it totally. I'm lowering it to the measure that I want it to be lowered. So this sin deserves this much punishment. If I was God, I can sovereignly control my passive movements. So it's an active passive movement. Does that make sense?